Okay, Kelly, should we go ahead and start?
Yes, I do not see him populating in the attendees. So as soon as Councilmember Cooper does, I will bring him over, but I will leave that to you.
Okay, well, it's 4 o'clock, and so let's go ahead and start. That way we can end in a timely fashion. And hopefully Councilmember Cooper will be able to join us soon. So we'll go ahead and start. I am covering for our chair, Carolyn Cox, today. She was unable to attend. She might join us later. I'm not sure. So with that, we'll do a small welcome and introductions. We'll go ahead and start with Yelm.
I am Councilmember Hess, representing Yelm, and look forward to a wonderful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Tumwater.
Hi, Michael Altauser, Tumwater City Council, and joined with Councilmember Joan Cathy, as well as Brad Medrud from our planning department. I don't see our city administrator, John Doan, here, but he usually attends these meetings as well, so he may pop it. We'll see. Thank you.
Thank you. Olympia.
All right, Danny Madrone with the Olympia City Council, and I believe Jim is going to be joining us as well. And staff here, I see Keith and Darian.
And Lacey. Rick, you want to do Lacey?
Sure. Rick Walk with the Community Economic Development Department, and we also have Kelly Adams here today as well.
Thank you. And then Thurston County, Carolina Mejia, and I have with me today our County Manager, Ramiro Chavez, as well as Tom Webster, Keely Marino. I'm just in Nostalgis, and then on the attendees list, I thought I saw Megan Porter. So with that, we'll move forward with the approval of the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Removed and seconded. I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Oh, aye.
Just
Sorry.
kidding. I'm sorry. I'm like in Board of County Commissioners mode right now. And
How do y'all do it over there?
okay, everyone say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, it passes. Okay, with that, we'll go for the approval of the March 23rd minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'll call for the yeses.
Aye.
Yes.
Any nays? Okay. With that, we will move forth to the 2022 RFP process and calendar. Tom?
All right. Good evening, everyone. Tom Webster. So in your packet, at the last page of your packet is a calendar. So we are in the middle of our RFP season. So just wanted to walk through kind of the calendar of moving forward, especially for May. May is going to be a busy time for the Regional Housing Council. So as everyone knows, we received applications. Application due date was April 1st. We've received applications for both cold and hazardous weather, our consolidated homeless grant, as well as capital projects. We had a meeting today with the review teams to go over Zoom grants to review those applications. So kind of next steps that I wanted to walk through, and I apologize when I look at my screen over here, is the RHC funding work group actually which is not on this calendar, my apologies, will be meeting on the 18th to also kind of prep for this process. And they will be reviewing the semi-annual reports from our 2163 and HSF contracts. So what we'll be doing at our next meeting on April 27th is bringing to this body information about those 2-year contracts that you awarded last year that are ready to be renewed. So we're going to be asking for your approval to renew contracts that were issued last year. And then the last week of April, the review team will be meeting to kind of finalize their scores and recommendations on the applications that were submitted this year. And we'll get all those kind of in Zoom grants, and kind of wanted to highlight that the first day of the retreat is on May 6th, but then on Monday, May 9th, the funding work group will be meeting to review the recommendations of the review team on those applications. So the RHC funding work group will make funding recommendations and bring those recommendations to this body on the May 11th meeting. And then this body will review those recommendations to kind of make your own recommendations that go to the full Board of County Commissioners in June. So, and then we have the May 13th is the day 2 of the retreat. So wanted to highlight that week of between May 6th and May 13th, there are 4 kind of RHC activities that will be happening both for the retreat, but also to move these applications forward. This timeline is important for us at the county because we need to submit an annual action plan to HUD. So the capital dollars have federal funds that are attached to them with a home. So we need to be able to identify those projects in time to be able to write that annual action plan and then submit that, put it out for a 30-day public comment period, and then have it before the board to get approved. That needs to be submitted to HUD by July 15th. So in order for us to meet all those deadlines, we do need kind of the recommendations out of this body specifically on those capital projects by mid-May. So that's why we're really kind of pushing this agenda for this body to make those decisions by May 11th. So wanted to kind of share that with everyone. We talked about it at the RHC executive meeting that recognize that meeting puts a lot of kind of strain on meeting time between the retreats and this process. So just wanted to give everyone a heads up on those timelines, answer any questions we have, but really just wanted to kind of share that time frame with folks. But happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Questions? Okay. Brian?
Yes, I apologize.
We lost you, Brian. Okay. Can you, are you there?
I think I'm here. Can you
Okay.
hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I apologize. In reference to the applications, and the only reason I'm asking is because I'm curious to know what organizations apply for this. Is it possible that we don't need to see the full application, but at least be able to see who applied for, who put applications in? Is that a possibility?
Yes, we can. Happy to put together a chart that lists kind of the applications, kind of project titles, even their funding request. Yes, we can. Happy to put together that information and send it out to this group so you have some insights on what applications were received.
Okay, I appreciate that. As I said, listening to some of the things that you were saying they could be used for, I was just wondering if anybody from Yelm put in an application into the organizations that were out there, and that's why I would like to just be able to take a look at it so I can make sure that next year advocacy for it could be done from my end. Thank you.
Yep, we're happy to do that. As an aside, I will say kind of not under the purview of this organization, but the CDBG applications were also received at the same time, and we will be working with the county and the South County mayors will be reviewing community development block grant applications, and they're on a similar time frame.
Thank you, Brian. Any more questions? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. Our next item is the rent assistance discussion, and this is Rick and Tom. Who wants to take it on first?
I will take it on. So really just want to provide an update for folks on a rent assistance. So on kind of current status. So we are actively, Live Stores is actively processing applications, and first payments have gone out this week. So the first $250,000 of rent assistance checks have gone out to the first 24 or so kind of applicants. So right now we are prioritizing people who had applications kind of approved by CAC, but checks had not gone out. And then we're going to be prioritizing kind of those that were in process. So Live Stories is actively contacting those folks, completing their applications, reviewing and approving those applications, and checks are going out the door. So kind of next steps is we're also been working with a dispute resolution center. So the county has signed a memorandum of understanding with DRC to share information on DRC clients. And so DRC clients who have started an application process with, who had started an application with CAC will also be prioritized for service with Live Stories. So we provided around 200 names of people who were with DRC referrals to Live Stories, and that will be the next group of people who are served. Here they're already starting to be served, actually. So that is the process. So things are moving forward. We know it's never fast enough for those who are waiting, whether they're tenant or landlord, waiting for that rent assistance payment. But we are getting those payments out the door. Right now, what we are going to be announcing is that for those tenants who had an appointment with CAC, but had not started the application process, we will be notifying them on April 25th and sending them information on how to start submitting their application with Live Stories. And then we're planning to go live to the full public on May 2nd. We will post that information on our website. So May 2nd, the general public will be able to start submitting applications to Live Stories for rent assistance. So that is kind of where we are with moving forward with the Live Stories. Yeah, Councilmember Cooper, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Tom, for the update. One thing I wanted to ask is I've really noticed with this transition, if you will, the comments that folks are making that include the particular details of their rent increases since the end of the eviction moratorium. And I just wonder, are we tracking that data in this application process?
In terms of rent increases,
Yeah.
That is not something we are tracking. That's something, potentially it'd be a little tricky to kind of go back and see, depending on what rents we're paying for. Sometimes we're paying future rent. That would be an interesting kind of deeper dive into the data to do that, but that is not something that's kind of readily being tracked kind of right now.
I've just kind of seen in my mostly my social feed when people are talking about the situation they're in and kind of waiting for the payments or the conversation, that they're being really specific, and the jumps are astronomical that people are talking about. And I'm just wondering, like, is there such thing as a public health moratorium on rent increases over a certain percentage? Because we have a problem that we aren't going to be able to get ahead of.
Yeah, and that kind of, thank you for that. And that leads a little bit into kind of the conversation that we wanted to have is one is in conversations with the Dispute Resolution Center, they are reporting to kind of a 10 to 20% increase in people contacting them kind of over the last month or two. They indicated that there has been an increase in eviction filings. There's a little bit of a trail in terms of when that number, but the report card they sent to me, and let me just kind of pull up these numbers, were kind of for Thurston County, 34 eviction filings in March. In 2021, there were 149 eviction filings. In 2020, there was 130. The annual average eviction filings based on kind of going back to 2004 through 2017 is about 550 per year. But this month, we saw 34 eviction filings, and that compares, sorry, let me just, that's about 10 more than the previous month.
And that's just the ones in court,
And those are just the ones in court.
not all the ones where people just leave because they're asked
Correct.
to, or
Or they somehow figure out how to tighten their belt. It's just, okay. Well, thanks for that, Tom. Sorry to move you off track, but we have a significant issue, I think, growing, and I don't see a lever to pull to help it at our level. So that's why I thought I'd bring up the Board of Health. So.
Right, and so
What's-
just kind of a couple quick numbers. So for February, the number was 27, again, 27 in January, 24 in December, but 12, 14 kind of in the months of 2021, we were looking at between 5 and 14 filings a month. And so kind of definitely numbers are creeping up around eviction filings.
I think the lever we do have that exists at our disposal, because of the prohibition on rent control, we can't create policy that says you can't increase rent by a certain percentage, but we can create policy as cities that says if rent is increased by more than 10%, you have to provide a supplemental additional notice period to the tenant. That's what some municipalities have done. Seattle has, if it increases by 10%, I think it's a 90-day notice. So when someone's on a month to month, instead of the standard 20-day notice that you would be providing, you'd have to increase that to 90 days if you increase the rent by a significant percentage. For what it's worth.
Any additional questions, comments?
I would just say, I guess one of the things we talked about kind of at the executive team is really just wanting to throw it out to this group around kind of messaging. We've been messaging to both landlords and tenants, kind of asking for patience and showing appreciation for patience for landlords as rent assistance funds do get kind of rolled out and those checks start coming out. I know, to be honest, landlords are pretty much out of patience. So it is. We know we're hearing from a lot of landlords and tenants that there's a lot of anxiety and stress out there. So we're just wanted to kind of give you that update, but also kind of just help with the messaging that funds will start to flow, and then kind of just a broader conversation on, any actions or communications that would be appropriate for the RHC to put out.
Brian?
Yes, and I understand the concern of, the rent going up and landlords kind of being at their wits' end. I mean, 2 years of not being required to collect rent for some of them due to the pandemic and variety of other issues. I'm just wondering, with the process that is out there, I know there's supposed to be an arbitration capability and all. Are we tracking in any way how many landlords were not receiving rent from tenants that had the capability to pay, but chose to stand in solidarity with those who could not pay, or anything like that? And yes, there are groups of people out there that could have made their rent. They made it quite clear they were able to pay their rent, but they chose not to, in solidarity with those who could not because of being, laid off and the various situations that occurred with the pandemic. And so I'm just wondering, because is that being tracked as well, or are we only getting the information of only for those that could not make payments due to the fact that they were laid off in the pandemic and the whole situation's been occurring for the past 2 years?
Yeah, so we do not have that data. So we have kind of data on who's applying for rent assistance. And as part of the eligibility's changed a little bit since the beginning of the pandemic. Originally, they needed to show some financial hardship as a result of COVID. Now the current eligibility is you just had to have a financial impact that occurred during COVID, kind of during the pandemic. So it didn't need to be directly related to COVID, but you need to show some demonstration of kind of financial hardship.
Okay, but have we even reached out to landlords to ask them in reference to, let's say a landlord has, 10 properties. Out of the 10 properties, how many of them were making rent on a regular basis compared to those that weren't? And then all of a sudden, when the moratorium's lifted up and everything, all of a sudden they got a huge payment for all the back rent at once, kind of thing. And the only reason I'm asking these questions is because the landlords, in a way, if they are raising rent, it's because for 2 years, imagine somebody who has not received anything. And there's reports of these situations where the tenants destroyed the property and are, as was pointed out, just moved out no questions asked or anything when the rent moratorium ended. And these other things, I mean, I want to make sure we're looking out for both sides, not just for the renter themselves, but also on the landlord side, so we can make sure there's equity on both sides. Hopefully I'm making sense with my question.
Yeah, it's a good question. We have not reached out directly to landlords to kind of collect that information. That's, within our office, we don't have a lot of landlord information, to do that, but it's also, yeah, it's not something we've done, but it'd be a worthwhile question.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Okay. Any additional questions? Michael, I saw you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Councilmember Hess, if you hear of constituents where there has been property damage, that a lot of those funds that assist landlords in that sense are actually organized at the state level. There's a fund by which landlords can apply for funding to help rehabilitate those properties if they live in certain jurisdictions. I think it's jurisdictions where they've enacted anti-discrimination ordinances. I'm not sure if Yelm has an ordinance like that on the books, but if a jurisdiction has enacted an anti-discrimination ordinance regarding Section 8 and a few other policies, then they can access that bucket of funds. So I think part of the difference here is that our focus has been on data for tenants, because that program is in the purview of local government, whereas the state is the one that's really handling kind of the statewide impact that landlords are facing. So if you have landlords that are, experienced something like that, and if in the off chance that their insurance didn't cover it as a business expense, I think maybe referring them to that state program might be a good resource to utilize for your constituents.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Danny?
I just wanted to note that I recently learned that Pierce County also has a landlord mitigation fund. Just want to put that out there in terms of that's something that we as a region might want to consider in the future.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm just curious to Michael's point, and I apologize for not knowing this detail about our city at the moment. Does anyone have a live conversation around notice for rent increase being longer if it's a higher percentage? Is that happening in any of our jurisdictions at the moment?
We have a tenant protection ordinance that we've had a hearing, or not a hearing, but we've had a session on it at our general government committee, and that we had a work session on with our council of the whole that talked about notice periods for rent increases. I think I'd have to defer to Brad on the, I don't think there's a specific piece in there for, like, if you raise it by 10%, you have to have the notice be broader. I think we just discussed notice periods for increases, period, as opposed to tying it to a percentage, but I defer to Brad on the specifics because he's the staff that's been drafting the actual language of that ordinance.
Yeah, we're still in the process of drafting language for further discussion, but our focus has been primarily on just the overall rent increase, not a percentage, not anything like that. So to try to keep it fairly simple, we're focusing on whether or not to keep the state required number of days, or perhaps extend or expand on that.
And I'll add, Jim, I'm sure you're aware that, but just for the benefit of everybody else, that the city of Olympia has had a survey going on around a variety of different rental housing policies that we can consider, with that one included. And we've done a few focus groups with landlords and tenants and with tenant advocates. And that is on our agenda for the next Land Use Environment Committee meeting next week for us to discuss a range of policies, including that one.
Okay, that's great. Anyone else? Thank you, Tom. With that, we'll move on to the RHC and Hat Retreat update, and that is Keely and Darian.
Good afternoon. We are excited to be nearing this very auspicious retreat dates. Darian has been lifting most of this since the contract lives over and originated at the City of Olympia. So Darian, I'll let you take it.
Thanks, Gilly. Yep, 2 dates. We have 1 date scheduled at City Hall and Council Chambers and 1 at Lacey at the Community Center. Interviews have been happening. Some of you may have been interviewed already. How exciting. And that's moving forward. Once those interviews are compiled, we'll get some themes. Those themes from the interview will really help shape the agenda of the retreat. Things we need to talk about, further hash out policy, procedure, etc. And yeah, that'll be over the 2 days, the 6th and the 13th. So we're looking forward to it. And you'll be sure to see agenda, etc. whenever those are finalized. Thanks.
Thank you too. For the update, any questions? Comments? No? I'm really looking forward to it. I got interviewed this past week and I thought the conversation went very well. So I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you so much for all your work, Keely and Darian. Okay, that was a short update. Everyone's kind of quiet today. Okay, good of the order. Any fun things going on? No?
So I can just report out that the county and the city of Olympia have met and are finalizing a set of what is it? A set of priorities for our interlocal agreement around the home funds. And so we're putting that in our attorney's laps to put some structure on for us. And so hopefully that process will be moving along pretty quickly here in the next couple of weeks. I should say few weeks anytime I'm talking about government, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Yeah, very, very good update on that. Brian?
Yes, I'm working with my city planners and the service department in a slow process of re-looking at some of our ordinances and some of our codes to be able to bring in more mixed use buildings, retail on the bottom, apartments on up above, in particular for our central business district. But I admit it's going to be a slow process because I don't think anybody's ever really started it. And my planners are excited to work with me on this. And so hopefully, as I said earlier, hopefully we'll be able to get something. And I really learned a lot last month when Olympia and everybody was giving their briefings on what they've done for their mixed use housing. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Tom?
Yeah, just a quick update. I'll put Keith on the spot. The county and the city of Olympia had a kind of walk around the Franz Anderson property. Was that last week? So it was really good to see that property and talk about going forward. So I don't know if Keith has other updates, but just wanted to make sure this body was aware that that's moving forward.
Oh, thanks, Tom. We did spend a couple hours walking the property and thinking about how the property will be used or can be used. And thank you to the county. The county's check cleared, and we are definitely in partnership there. $1.685 million. We do own the property, approximately 6 acres off of Franz Anderson Road. We are literally just starting the planning process. Our engineering team is engaged there and is in the lead on the planning process. We're looking at siting a couple of facilities on the property, but at this point it's pretty wide open. Our hope is to extend the infrastructure necessary to serve a permanent supportive housing project for a long-term development. But obviously in the short term, we're looking at some emergency housing solutions like tiny house village and safe parking programs and things in between. So there you go. More to come, much more to come.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Okay, so our next RHC meeting is Wednesday, April 27th, 2022 at 4 p.m. over Zoom. If there's not anything else, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much for a nice short meeting.